Ms. Van, would you like to come up here and introduce our guest?
Mom, I don't know what you did, but I'm glad the pressure's off me.
Well, I'm sure I did it, though.
I have today, our guest is Coach David Vince. He's a native of Louisiana. Graduated from McNeese State University, and he lives in Ragley, Louisiana. Does everybody know where Ragley is?
Yeah, Ragley.
I got my first speaking ticket in Ragley. He's married to Susan, and they have 3 children. He is a former head coach of Campbellsville University in Kentucky, and he won a national championship there, first baseball national championship in the school history in 1987. He's had 10 district championships teams, 8 district runner-up teams, 2 state final, 4 teams, a state runner-up team, and he's a 10-time Coach of the Year recipient in various divisions. He has coached in baseball in Holland, Spain, Czech Republic, Sweden, Australia, Puerto Rico, Italy, Curacao, and Hawaii, and I'd like for him to say the word baseball in every one of those languages. Yeah, exactly. He has worked as an associate scout for the Texas Rangers, Cleveland Indians, and Tampa Bay Rays, and I will let him fill you in on the rest. He's here to talk about his book.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you today. You seem to be a group that likes jokes, so I have one, if you'll indulge me just for a minute. This is an anniversary joke, so anybody's having an anniversary coming up. There's a couple in the room who has been celebrating 50 years of marriage, and the husband was reflecting back on those 50 years, and he turned to his wife and he said, "Honey, when I first met you, you were a 20-something-year-old pretty young thing, and we lived in a cheap house, we drove an economy car, and we watched TV on a 10-inch screen TV. So here we are 50 years later, we live in a house that's worth $500,000, we're driving a $60,000 car, and we're watching TV on a 50-inch screen TV. He said, "But then I look at you, and you don't seem to quite have held up your end of the bargain." So his wife, without hesitation, looked at him and said, "Honey, you go out and find you another 20-year-old pretty young thing that'll take you, and I'll make sure you're back living in that cheap house, driving that economy car, and watching that 10-inch screen TV." So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As he said, I was a baseball coach for 29 years, and I had a very highly successful career. As he mentioned my bio there, 470 career wins. I have 5 players drafted, over 30 get scholarships, but that's not what makes my story unique. For a lot of coaches have on-field athletic success with coaching, but what makes my story unique is I was born with a birth defect that at 1.5 years old required the amputation of both my legs above the knee. So despite everything that I've accomplished, been in spite of that being born with a birth defect. In fact, doctors told me I'd never walk without crutches. I put the crutches down when I was 8 years old. Doctors told me I'd never have children. I have a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I get teased mercilessly these days about the 2-year-old. People say, "You got a master's degree and you haven't figured out what causes that yet?" And evidently not. We had a surprise baby at age 50. And I'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. But I have parents and grandparents that didn't allow me to use the word "can't" in my vocabulary, and certainly weren't going to let me use my handicap as an excuse. They were very supportive. But my success didn't come easy. When I was in elementary school, I walked with wrist crutches till around the 5th grade, and I was intensely bullied at school. In fact, the game was how many times can we shove David down at recess without the teacher looking in a 20-minute period. For most days, it was 4 or 5 times. I would gather myself, pick myself back up, get my crutches, regain my balance. About the time I regained my balance, I was on the ground again. And so I was reporting this to the teacher, and the teacher's response was, "Well, I have to catch them in the act. I got to see them do it before I can do anything." Of course, the name of the game was when the teacher's not looking. So the kids weren't dumb, and they were doing it when the teacher wasn't looking. So I endured this for about 2 weeks, and I finally made up my mind that if it was going to stop, I was the one who was going to have to stop it. Now, I don't condone what I did. You got to remember 2 things. 1, that I was 8 years old, and 2, I was packing a wrist crutch. Today's 8 and 10-year-olds sometimes got guns and knives in their pocket. But I'm preparing for the guy to come full speed to shove me down. I'm looking over my shoulder. Here he comes. I just leaned my crutch out there, and he ran right into it. No. He's running full speed to shove me down. I swing the crutch full speed. Thankfully, I didn't hit him in the face. I nailed him in the stomach, and it knocked his breath out of him. He collapsed like a deck of cards. But when he got up, this is what surprised me. He didn't run and go tell the teacher that I just hit him with the crutch. I mean, what was he going to say? I was running to knock David down. And so what he did, though, is that he respected the fact that I stood up for myself, and he decided he was going to leave me alone. The next year, the emotional bullying started when the physical bullying stopped. We were supposed to have an upstairs classroom, one with the bay window like this where you could see outside recess and watch PE, anything but pay attention to the teacher's lesson, right? Well, we didn't get that classroom because I couldn't maneuver the stairs. So every day the kids reminded me constantly, it's your fault. If you weren't in our grade, if you weren't in our class, we'd be up there in that classroom. I don't know what the big deal about that was, but for some reason it was a big deal to them. So the emotional bullying was going on. But as I got into high school, that started to dissipate. People had become more familiar with being around me, and I didn't see much of that in high school, the bullying. Now, as I got to high school, I didn't take PE in high school. If you went to high school in the 60s or early 70s, you know that all PE in high school was run the football bleachers for 45 minutes, and then you went in. Well, I physically couldn't do that, so they allowed me to take extra electives. Also in high school, and I took a required class in English, I heard the poem by Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled. 2 roads diverge in the woods. I chose the one less traveled, and it's made all the difference in the world for me. Now, when I got ready to go into college, I hung on to that poem, stuck it in the back of my mind. I didn't quite pursue the coaching profession right away. When I went my freshman year of college, I decided that I was going to, is it me?
That's not a phone. That's not a phone.
You have your phone on you?
No, I got it, but I got it off. You got it turned off.
Oh, well.
Anyway, I go to college. I'm rationalizing that I need a desk job with lucrative pay. So I was going to major in CPA accounting, become an accountant. Any accountants in the room today?
No.
Okay. So God bless you fellas. It wasn't for me. I go to my freshman year in Northeast, and
You were expecting cake?
I take an intro to accounting class, and I've got a 17 average on a 100-point scale. In fact, I made the comment, this is the first course. I got 4 more years of this, and I can't pass the first course. So I knew it wasn't going to be my career path. So I sought out a youth pastor. He asked me, I said, I don't know what I want to do. Oil field's booming. I can't work offshore. Chemical plants all over Louisiana. I physically can't do that. I'm flunking out of accounting, so I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to coach baseball. He said, major in PE. How am I going to do that? I didn't take PE in high school, and I don't have any legs. Hadn't you noticed? And so he convinced me that it was going to be mostly book work. Anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, intro to health. Very few physical activity classes. So I researched that. He was correct. I transferred to McNeese State in Lake Charles, and I changed my major to health and PE. And so I only had 2 job offers coming out of college, and one was Catholic Point Capee over in New Roads, and the other one was Zachary High. Zachary High offered me assistant baseball, assistant football, but the Catholic school offered me a chance to be the head baseball coach, assistant football. So I took that job, even though it was less pay and less benefits. And it proved to be a great decision for me, although not initially. We lost the first 4 games I ever coached, and my players were ready to hang the principal and the AD. They gave us a baseball coach that's never played baseball in his life, which is true. They gave us a coach that doesn't have any legs, which was true. And here's the false statement. They're trying to kill baseball to build up football around here. There's the football state. But I made a lineup change, and right after I made the lineup change, we win 22 games in a row. We go all the way to the state championship game, and we placed a little team out in New Orleans called John Curtis. And you know, well, you know how that turned out. But we didn't win that game. We ended up state runner-up, and I'm very proud of that. At 21 years old, having never coached or played, coached a state runner-up team. There's guys that coach their entire careers and never get there, and I'm there the very first year I ever coached. So 4 years later, I'm named the head coach at Campbellsville University in Kentucky, which is the NAIA school. That never had a conference championship in the history of the school. I go in, we win the conference championship, I'm voted conference coach of the year, and at the end of the year, I'm let go. Now at age 26, I had my dream job, and I'm questioning, what else you got to do? You've never done this in the history of the school before. SAC's accreditation team only comes around every 10 years. You have to have 10% doctorates in every department to maintain accreditation. The person I replaced had a doctoral degree. I only had a master's. I'm begging them, I'll get my doctorate. Just let me stay. Look what I just did. And the answer was, it was May. He said, we doubt you have it finished by August. Well, even with online degrees today, can't do a doctoral program May to August. So the last one hired, the first one to go, and I was let go. But then I got to October, and the fourth no came, and I'm unemployed. I'm, God, what are you doing? I'm unemployed. That's your will for my life? And we moved back to Louisiana, and I told my wife we're going to have to move around. I'm climbing the ladder. But we're going to move every 3 or 4 years till I get back to the college level. Now, over the next 10 years, it took me 10 years. I ended up at a 6A school in Orlando, Florida. Louisiana's got 5A, Texas 5A. Florida now has 8A. That's how big the schools are. But I ended up at a 6A school in Orlando, Florida. Now, my baseball success is continuing. 2 state Final Four teams, coach of the year every other year. But the adversity starts coming. My wife's mother dies of breast cancer at age 44. My father dies of a heart attack at age 55. His dad died of a heart attack at age 50. In fact, no Vince male has ever made it past the age of 55. So I have a goal today because I'm 52 and I'm next. So I'm hoping I'm the guy that breaks that cycle, but we just don't know. But the title of my book is When Life Throws You Curves, Keep Swinging. So you've heard a lot of curves already, but we're not done yet. We get to Orlando school. They were 8-19 the year before I get there. 30-year existence, never a winning season in the history of the school. And I go in and I'm 19-8 my first year. I thought I was a miracle worker. I'm patting myself on the back. But at the end of that year, I'm facing a fire coach Vince party. There's 3 disgruntled parents that decided I was disciplining their kids too much for missing practice, missing weight training, missing signs in games. They always had a consequence. I wasn't sweating that, but they brought in, that to show their clout, they brought in a state legislator to the meeting, a school board member to the meeting. But you know, principals are the ones that hire and fire, and they still do. And so that didn't matter. I wasn't sweating that. I had 19 on the team, 3 unhappy. That's pretty good. You only got 3 unhappy. But when I got to the room, the other 16 parents were there. And so my confidence went straight to the floor. I said, here we go again. I don't understand it. But I put a quote in my book. I believe Patrick Henry is the one that said it. It says this: all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. On that particular day, those 16 parents showed up to defend me, not condemn me. And it was surprising. It caught me by surprise. It caught the 3 disgruntled parents by surprise. They weren't invited to the meeting. They heard through the grapevine it was taking place, and they crashed it. And that saved my job. I was there over seven more years. Playoffs every year. Now here's the heart of my presentation, so please hang in there just a little bit longer. The next step is college level, and a JUCO job opened up in Orlando. I wasn't going to have to move. I'd have to take a $20,000 a year pay cut if I get the job, but more importantly, they weren't offering any medical insurance, so I'd have to give my public school medical insurance up. I pursued the job anyway. My wife didn't understand that. I nailed the interview, and for the 5th time, I came in second. This time I wasn't the Lord's will for my life. I'm angry, I'm shaking my fist at God, and didn't understand why I was being denied my dream job of coaching at the college level. I thought that was my life's most bitterest disappointment. But I found out why I didn't get the job a year later. It ended up being my life's greatest blessing. A year to the day and not getting the junior college job, my middle child Sierra was born 3 months premature. E. coli infection of the umbilical cord. Water on the brain. Same leg deformities I have, no pulse, no blood pressure, 50-50 chance she's not going to make it. Had I gotten the JUCO job, $20,000 less salary to fight that with, but more importantly, no medical insurance. The whole time I was angry and shaking my fist at God. He knew what was coming down the pike, and He was protecting my family from my own foolishness. My daughter stayed in the hospital 3 months. She was born 2 pounds 6 ounces. She dropped to 1 pound 6 ounces before she turned around. Today she's 12 years old. She has a brain shunt. She walks on prosthetic legs like I do, but she swims on Special Olympic swim team. She's finished 1st and 2nd in the state meet 2 years in a row in all of her events. She plays in a Challenger League baseball league, a Challenger League basketball league. We don't put any artificial limits on her, just like my parents didn't put any on me. So 9 years later, after she's born, I'm considering retiring. I'm 50, my wife's 47. She comes to me and says, David, I'm pregnant. Now, I didn't jump for joy at that news. In fact, the first thing out of my mouth was, I'll be 70 years old when that kid starts college. The second thing it reminded me of is when I was in elementary school, I had a 10-year-old friend whose dad was 60, and I was the #1 guy teasing him and making fun of him. Now I'm that guy. When my son turns 10, I'll be 60, so payback's heck. All right. But the third thing I remembered that when my daughter was born, they told me you carry a defective gene. 50-50 chance of every kid you have is going to have the leg deformity. My son, oldest son, is 14. He's 6 foot tall. Doctors are projecting him to grow to 6'5", perfectly healthy. He wears a size 14 shoe, and he's playing basketball right now. My daughter was born with the challenges. That's 50-50. You're pregnant again. Doctors then on top of that say you got a 1 in 6 chance of a Down syndrome baby, because your wife's 47. Well, the baby was born healthy in March of 2010. It was a boy, and that triggered my retirement. We moved back home to Louisiana. My mom threw in an acre of land to kind of seal the deal. She was begging us to come home. I'll give you an acre of land if you come home. So we came home and retired. And where does the title of the book come from? Obviously, what is a curve? It's a baseball metaphor for anything that throws your life off center, catches you totally off guard. Baby at 50, handicapped daughter, losing your college job, on it goes with us. But everybody in the room's had a curve thrown in your life sooner or later. What do you do when life throws you curves? I close the book with a devotion out of Joshua. The first 10 verses in chapter 1, God told Joshua 4 times in 10 verses, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Why? Moses just died. You got to go in the promised land. Nobody wants to go with you. There's giants over there. You're outnumbered. 10 of the other scouts said we can't do it. Be strong and courageous, and I'll give you the victory. You skip over to chapter 10, verse 25. They run the victory, and Joshua was emboldened with confidence. And the verse says this. He's given a victory speech. Be strong and courageous, and the Lord will do this to all the enemies you fight. There's not that many double amputees that are out there coaching in the profession. The first question you get answered on a job interview asked is, where did you play? Of course, I never physically played, so that's eye-opening right now. They raise their eyebrows at that. And then they say, you don't have any legs, no sir, but you still want to coach. Yeah, I got a degree, but you don't have any background information to prove that you can do the job. So for me to pursue the profession was taking a huge risk, and yet more importantly, the ones who hired me were taking an even bigger risk, because they didn't have any background on whether I'd be able to do the job or not. So that was one of the first hurdles. And then secondly, being able to get players to buy in. When you don't have a playing career, most coaches get their jobs on their playing career credibility. You don't have that. So I knew going in when I first chose this profession that I was going to have to be very knowledgeable. I prided myself on attending games at every level, college, JUCO, high school, pro, working clinics and baseball camps at highly successful programs, and just learning how to teach the game the right way.
K-E